There comes a moment, not dramatic or loud, but deeply sacred, when heaven doesn't just observe, it steps in. When what felt like unanswered prayers suddenly turn into undeniable movement. When the injustice you've endured, the pain you've silenced, the tears you've cried quietly behind closed doors, all reach the ears of a God who has never stopped listening. This moment isn't just symbolic. It's not just metaphor. It's real. It's righteous. And yes, it's personal. Not because God is angry, but because God is deeply invested in you, in your wholeness, in your healing, in your freedom. You see, for far too long, others may have treated your love like leverage, your patience like permission, your forgiveness like weakness. They may have mistaken your kindness for naivety, but God never did. God saw what was happening, not just the actions, but the intentions behind them. He saw the manipulation, the deceit, the control, and the lies, and he didn't ignore it. He gave space for repentance, for change, for honesty. But that space was misused, not filled with reflection, but reinvention, not met with humility, but with more performance. There are people who build lives out of deception, not just telling lies, but living inside of them, wearing masks so long they forget what their real face even looks like. They don't just fool others, they begin to fool themselves. They build systems, entire environments, around their manipulation, hoping to stay one step ahead of accountability. But even the most convincing performance can't deceive heaven. God is not passive, he is patient. And his patience is not weakness, it's mercy. A mercy that waits longer than it should have to. A mercy that listens when no one else does. A mercy that gives chance after chance, door after door, whisper after whisper. But even mercy has a boundary. And when that boundary is crossed, God does not shout. He doesn't panic. He simply moves with clarity and authority. Because divine justice doesn't need noise. It's precise, surgical, intentional. So if you're noticing shifts, relationships changing, truths surfacing, masks slipping, know this: you're not losing control. You're watching God take it. This is not your punishment. It's your protection. This is not chaos. It's cleansing. It might not feel like victory at first. It might feel like loss, like confusion, like everything is falling apart. But what's really happening is that everything that wasn't meant to remain is being removed. Because God doesn't just deal with the surface. He dismantles the system, the scaffolding of deceit, the web of confusion, the false sense of control that made someone believe they could hurt others without consequence. He's not just addressing behavior, he's confronting the pride behind it. And he's not doing it to be cruel. He's doing it because enough is enough. You may not have seen it coming, but you prayed for peace. You prayed for justice. You asked for clarity, and now it's arriving, not in the way you expected, but in the way you needed. This isn't just about them being exposed. It's about you being restored, about you being free. God saw how you doubted your own worth, how you questioned your own heart, how you replayed conversations, second-guessing what you felt, because someone made you believe your intuition was wrong. He saw how you held it together when everything inside was unraveling, how you tried to make peace when others sowed chaos, how you kept believing in people who repeatedly showed you who they really were. And God, in his goodness, didn't just take notes, he took action. Now the roles are reversing. The narrative is shifting, and what once made them seem powerful is now unraveling before their eyes. The voice that once dominated conversations is now met with silence, not because people are being petty, but because the spiritual atmosphere has changed. What once worked no longer does. The applause has stopped. The audience has dispersed, and the stage they performed on is crumbling. That's not your doing. That's God's hand. He is removing what you didn't have the strength or the clarity to walk away from. He's shutting doors you kept trying to hold open, not to punish you, but to protect you, to deliver you, to preserve the version of you he always intended. Because this isn't about you being bitter. It's about you being better. You were never a pawn, never just collateral in someone else's storyline. You are a child of God, worthy of love, respect, peace, and safety. And God will always move to secure what belongs to Him. So if it feels like everything is being shaken, that's because only what's unshakable is meant to remain. If you feel like you're standing in the ashes, look again. You're standing on sacred ground. What you thought was destruction was actually divine reconstruction. What you feared was the end is actually the beginning. This is not a loss. It's a liberation. And while it may be tempting to grieve what's falling, don't mourn what God is removing. Don't try to salvage the pieces of something He has already declared finished. Don't return to the rubble trying to rebuild what wasn't built on truth. Let it go. Let it fall. Let it end. Because if God is ending it, you were never safe inside it. Sometimes deliverance doesn't look like an open door. It looks like a door slamming shut. It looks like silence where there used to be noise. It looks like people walking away who once stood close. It looks like things breaking, so better things can be built. God isn't just rescuing you, He's revealing Himself. You may wonder, why now? But heaven never moves late. Heaven moves in alignment, in wisdom, in sovereignty. He's not just dealing with the narcissist. He's dealing with the enablers, the lies, the structure, the influence, the illusion. Everything that protected and perpetuated the cycle is now being exposed and dismantled. And not with fanfare, with finality. It may not make headlines, but it will mark hearts. It may not look like justice to the world, but to your spirit, it will feel like home. Because when God silences a voice, it's not out of spite, it's out of sorrow. Not because He stopped loving them, but because they refused every invitation to love Him back honestly. He gave them space. They used it to re-strategize instead of repent. He gave them time. They spent it manipulating instead of mending. He gave them grace. They treated it like a loophole. So now God has said, enough. Not with wrath, but with weight. Not with rage, but with righteousness. And when God declares something finished, no one gets to reopen it. So let there be peace in your heart as the noise dies down. Let there be strength in your steps as you move forward. Let there be hope in your healing, because what you're stepping into now isn't just survival. It's restoration, it's resurrection, it's revival. You may not have received closure in the way you wanted, but you are receiving deliverance in the way you need. You don't need their apology. You don't need their explanation. You don't need their approval. You have God's verdict, and His word is final. He doesn't just correct the narrative. He changes the ending. This isn't a tragedy. This is transformation. So walk forward, not in fear, but in faith. Not with shame, but with dignity. Not with bitterness, but with boldness. Because what they meant for harm, God is using for your good. And what they built to break you, God is using to bless you. This is your confirmation. The game is over. Not because they gave up, but because God stood up. This moment is not symbolic or abstract. It is real. It is holy. And it is happening now, not to hurt anyone, but to bring healing, clarity, and peace to what's been chaotic and confusing for far too long. You've carried so much. You've endured more than anyone should have to. And through it all, you kept trying. You kept hoping. You gave the benefit of the doubt, even when you weren't sure you should. You loved deeply, forgave quietly, and believed the best, sometimes at your own expense. God saw all of it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every whispered prayer. Nothing was wasted. Nothing went unnoticed. He didn't rush to act, not because He didn't care, but because He wanted to offer every possible chance for truth to rise, for hearts to change, for healing to happen. But now, that time has passed. God is stepping in, not to destroy, but to restore, not to retaliate, but to redeem. He's not just defending you, He's protecting you. He's not just pulling down what harmed you, He's rebuilding what was meant for you. For a long time, someone may have tried to shape reality to fit their version of truth. They use charm instead of honesty, control instead of connection, and confusion instead of clarity. But the deeper truth is, people who are hurting often hurt others. And though that explains it, it doesn't excuse it. You didn't deserve to be caught in the middle. Your kindness shouldn't have been taken advantage of. Your empathy wasn't a flaw, it was a strength. And your silence? It wasn't weakness, it was grace. Now, the grace that was extended is being met with justice. Not because God is harsh, but because He is good. Because love sometimes says, enough. The structure that protected manipulation is being dismantled, not to embarrass anyone, but to make sure that no one else gets hurt the way you were. The masks are slipping, not to shame, but to give space for the real to finally be seen. And yes, it might feel messy. It might be painful. But please don't mistake what's happening as destruction. This is deliverance. What's falling apart was never built on truth to begin with. And what God is removing is not something you need to rebuild. You prayed for peace. You longed for freedom. You hoped for clarity. This is the answer. God is silencing what once overwhelmed your spirit. He's closing doors that once kept you trapped. He's gently removing what you didn't even know was harming you. Not to hurt the other person, but to heal you. There's no gloating in this. No triumphalism. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about truth and healing and love. Because love doesn't always say yes. Sometimes it says stop. God saw how you lost parts of yourself trying to keep things together, how you questioned your own reality, how you blamed yourself for the disconnect someone else caused. He saw how much you gave, how much you believed, how much you hoped. And now He's stepping in to say, no more. He is restoring your voice. He is anchoring your peace. He is calling you out of confusion and into clarity. The voice that once sounded so loud, so convincing, no longer carries the same power. Not because you've become cold or hardened, but because God has given you discernment. Because you're beginning to see things through His eyes now. So if people are walking away, if relationships are shifting, if silence is replacing the noise, trust the process. It's not rejection, it's realignment. God is not just answering your prayers. He's giving you more than you knew to ask for. You may not have gotten an apology. You may never get one, but you don't need it to heal. The closure isn't coming from them. It's coming from heaven. You are not being left behind. You are being lifted. You are not being punished. You are being protected. You are not losing. You are being led into wholeness, into safety, into truth. So even as things fall away, trust that God's hand is in it. Trust that His justice is never cruel, it's compassionate. His correction isn't condemnation, it's care. He's not tearing things down to break people. He's tearing down what was never real so He can build what will last. And you are being restored in the process. Let the old go. Let the masks fall. Let the silence settle. Because in that stillness, you'll begin to hear the truth again. You were never the problem. You were the one being preserved. God is with you. God is for you. And the game may be over, but grace is just beginning.